Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 23 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, going to be joined by former Coca-Cola 600 champion David Reutimann as we continue our Championship May series. We'll be joined by Reutimann, get his thoughts on his coveted 600 victory and look back on his great career that he had over the years and catch up with him, see what he's up to now. All that and more coming up on today's show. Later on, we'll have our NASCAR News and Notes. Plus, we'll get our Ask David segment where you can submit questions to us and we'll answer those for both David and David Reutimann here on today's show. As always, we are presented by Whataburger. Don't forget that every Whataburger is made fresh, served hot, and prepared just like you like it. Want jalapenos and cheese on that? No problem. They've got you covered. Whataburger, proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. David Starr joins us right now. David, always a pleasure, my friend. What is behind you? You got some tractor or something? That doesn't look like Darlington.
No, man. I left Darlington and flew up here to Reading, Pennsylvania, visiting with Missy and Rich Fix. They one of my longtime partners and sponsors for years. And before I race at Dover, Delaware this weekend, I come up a little early and spend some time with those folks. They're just good people. And I said, hey, where can I do my podcast at? And they said, they got a lot of people around. They said, we'll put you back there where those old tractors are. So I'm back here and a shot. See, man, Rich probably has 15, 16 old John Deere tractors. It's pretty awesome, man. Pretty great people, great friends. They're like family, and man, you can't thank them enough for their sponsorship over the years.
I want to see you get on that tractor, David.
Well, I've been known when I was here to get on one and do some mowing, dude. I love that. So it's awesome.
Dominic Aragon from the RacingExperts.com joins us as well. Dominic, are you much of a lawnmower guy?
Well, I've done the front lawn and the back lawn, but with the old school one. I don't have like a John Deere or anything like that. But David, you might have to show me a trick or two.
Well, hey man, I just making your lines straight, man, making that grass look pretty. That's what it's all about. As long as you're making those lines straight, you're good.
Keep that grass short, you're in good shape. David, nice run at Darlington. You finished 16th. And you did so with my logo on your car. So I got to think that may have been some good luck of some sorts, having the Jones report on both sides of the car. But nonetheless, good run there at Darlington. How'd you feel about how things went?
Man, we had a great race. It didn't start off real good. There you got to have a good car, because just running around there by yourself is challenging at times. And, we've all heard the terms Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame. I mean, it's everything. That's a way to describe the racetrack, but it's very challenging. And when the race started, our Toyota Supra, man, we were on the splitter hard, and kind of uncharacteristics of our race car since this year. But they were a little bit aggressive, and we went when they dropped the green, went in corner number one. Man, that thing wouldn't turn, and we almost knocked the wall down. Got fortunate enough that we didn't hit it. And when we turned off the wall coming off turn two, man, we almost knocked that wall down. I think I went from 15th, 16th, where we started to dead last within like really quick, within like a lap or two. We held on to it and didn't go a lap down. And Carl Long, the crew chief, Carl did an excellent job. We kept working on it, trying to lift the front of the car up, trying to get it off the splitter, but it was a little bit of a challenge for us. It took us probably half the race to get it where we needed. And once we got it where we needed it, then we could start, we started moving forward and being a part of the race. But man, it was a great race. My team did an excellent job. Carl Long, my crew chief, did an excellent job making changes to it. We never stopped digging. And when it was all said and done, we had a decent finish. They had a big wreck right there at the end. I think 2 or 3 of the leaders pitted for tires. And when it came down to it, there was only like 2 or 3 laps to go at the end. They had a green, white checkered, and we were racing pretty hard, and I thought I was going to get a couple more, maybe 2 or 3 more. And my spotter said, man, they're wrecking behind you. They're wrecking, caution's out. And then he said, "Oh man, they didn't throw the caution." So, I mean, all in all, it was a good day for us. So we'll take it. Anytime you can leave Darlington with with just a little bit of minor damage to the race car and a decent finish, it was a good race for us.
And David, you've been talking about how you and your team want to knock off some top 15 finishes. Well, you guys got 16th at Talladega, 16th at Darlington. According to Fox Sports' Bob Pockrass, you're going to start 20th at Dover this Sunday. Seems like your team is finding some rhythm and some momentum here early on as we shape up into the summer months.
Yeah, it's my first time driving for MBM Motorsports, and the cars are driving well. We've had a little bit of bad luck here and there, and you work through that. But all in all, not bad. I mean, for the budget, we talk about budgets a lot, and obviously we're not one of the big powerhouse teams. If we can finish 12th, 13th, 11th, 10th, I'm going to pull into victory lane with the winner, because I mean, we won big time. If you look dollar to dollars and, the budget we race on, I feel like when we finish in the top 15 or 16th, 14th, it's pretty good. It's amazed how good our race cars are and how small of a budget we work on, So all in all, hey man, just glad to be out there racing. We having a lot of good time, and we just digging as hard as we can with what we got.
That's cool, David. And one more thing before we bring in David Reutimann here. I got to ask you, throwback weekend, you had a special scheme, but also you got to get inside of the Intimidator's old car, thanks to Dale Jr. Tell me about that experience.
Man, that was awesome. I didn't realize I saw the car in the garage. I went over and looked at it. It was pretty awesome. I had seen it on some of Dale Jr.'s social media. And when I turned around, somebody said, "Man, the Earnhardt's car's in the garage." So I turned around, there it was. I walked down there to look at it, went down and take a couple pictures of it, and not paying attention. There was people around, and next thing you know, I was talking to Dale Jr. I didn't even know he was right there. He was right there. And so we were talking about the car and took a couple pictures with the car and was talking to him. And then I walked back to my hauler to get ready for our race. And when I walked out to pit road, I guess he had jumped in the car and drove it to pit road because he was going to pace the field. And when I walked out there, I just kind of walked up to look at it again. And Dale asked me if I wanted to sit in it. And man, you had to take that opportunity. I couldn't believe that I got an invitation like that. So it was pretty amazing. That's for sure.
Oh, so that's awesome.
Absolutely. Pretty amazing to sit in Dale Earnhardt Sr., one of his race cars that he raced, so pretty cool deal. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Dominic, why don't you go ahead and, as the show historian here, roll us through the accomplishments of David Reutimann. Introduce us to our next guest here.
Sure. We're talking somebody that is an accomplished dirt track racer, somebody who has won at all three touring series of NASCAR's National Series. He's the 2009 Coca-Cola 600 champion. He won at Chicagoland in 2010 in the Cup Series, drove for some cool teams in the Cup Series, most notably for Michael Waltrip Racing. And we often get asked, who's the man? We say David Reutimann. David, we appreciate you taking the time here to join us here on Let's Go Racing. Thanks for stopping by Championship May month.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. And when you're going through my list of accomplishments, you got to look pretty hard. There's not a lot of good stuff on there, but every once in a while you find something good.
Well, I want to challenge that statement, Reutimann. You were one heck of a race car driver. As a competitor and a friend, I raced against you. Anytime David Reutimann was on the racetrack, you had your work cut out for you. Just the battles we had back in the Truck Series days. If you were going to win a race back then, David Reutimann was the guy you was going to have to beat. I mean, you accomplished a lot. You had a big following. The fans loved you. You were just an awesome competitor and a hell of a race car driver. And it was cool for me to race against you for so long and to see you get that opportunity to race in the Cup Series, as one of our guys in the Truck Series, and when you see somebody like yourself get an opportunity that was well-deserved, and to go up there and to run with Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson and all those guys, and then win a couple races, man, we were proud of you. It was like our buddy Reutimann, you know what I mean? You did the Truck Series well when you left us, and went up to the Cup Series, and man, you did a heck of a job, man. What a career you had.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I mean, it was all right. I mean, I came in and got my opportunity quite a bit later in life than a lot of the younger guys did. So, the whole time you're there, especially it's kind of become more of a young man sport as the years have gone on. But whether that's realistic or not, that's just how it ends up being. And your time, it's like being on death row. Sooner or later, your time's up. And so you got to make the most of it. And I had a lot of really good opportunities, and got to race for a lot of great teams. So I enjoyed every minute of that.
Well,
David, I think when you look at Toyota coming to NASCAR, particularly the Cup Series, you're one of the first names that comes to mind to everybody. Is David Reutimann driving the 00 Aaron's Dream Machine and getting to the chase and, bringing MWR its first win and such. I mean, tell us what it was like to be a part of Toyota's, first experience in the Cup Series to help bring them to NASCAR.
Well, I think there was a lot of unknowns, which, I mean, getting in on the ground floor with any manufacturer coming in is tough, especially when you come to race a car company that's never been involved in NASCAR before, and coming in there and trying to, start your own deal. And I think David will tell you firsthand. I mean, when we went to the Truck Series, really nobody knew what to expect of the Toyotas, and there was a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of broke stuff, and a lot of growing pains with the new teams, and I was one of the guys that was there at the beginning, and it was a pretty interesting ride during the whole time. But again, there was a lot of ups and downs, and that's just what you got to expect with the new manufacturer. You don't just come into the sport and be successful right away. You got to work at it, and they certainly worked pretty hard, and we all did for a long time.
Go ahead, Dominic.
So, I mean, David, too, getting to run with Michael Waltrip Racing. I mean, did you ever pinch yourself thinking, wow, I'm running with the top guys. I win one of the most prestigious races in the Cup Series. And I mean, you were a multi-winner in all 3 National Touring Series. I mean, do you ever pinch yourself making it to NASCAR's highest level like that?
Yeah, I mean, when I started racing and at whatever level I was at, I wasn't trying to necessarily get to NASCAR and be a NASCAR driver. I was just racing to try to be like my dad, and try to race for a living. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily have my career goal set on NASCAR. It just worked out where I had the opportunities, and it did work out. So it was just and again, Dave will tell you it's about being in the right place at the right time so many times. And I think that's the same thing to say whether you play football or baseball or whatever. The right people need to see you when you're doing well, and I got some opportunities that I couldn't have ever dreamed of. So yeah, it was definitely really, really cool. I wish I would have stopped and enjoyed it more, because it's so much going on, and you're so busy, and you're so busy doing things that you don't have a chance to sit around and look around and take it all in and realize that you're one of the few guys that gets a chance to do that. So I do miss a little bit of that. I wish I would have taken more time to do that.
Right.
David, take me back to that first Speed Weeks with MWR. I remember the ESPN reality show they did on you guys and documenting the start of MWR. And of course, everybody knows about the jet fuel incident and such, and tell me about that, of just the pressure it was just to make the 500 for all 3 of the new MWR teams that first Speed Weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge. Especially being from Florida. I mean, I used to go over there, which was at the time was the Twins, 125s and stuff like that, and watch those. And just be a competitor on a local level, sitting in the grandstands trying to figure out how I was ever going to get in the infield, and then you get the opportunity to, and then obviously Daytona was a big deal to me, just being from Florida and all the things that went along with it. So yeah, there was a lot of pressure there, and a lot of controversy, and certainly there was a lot of hype going on around Michael Waltrip Racing, which Michael always seemed to be good at getting the media attention and all those things that go along with that. He was again, there was just so much hype and so many unknowns, and realistically, man, I tell you, those guys at MWR, they worked awful hard to get us there. And we weren't really as prepared as we should have been, probably. But my crew chief at the time, Frankie, massaged on that thing, and we had a pretty good qualifying effort for what we had, and like I say, got in the show, and it was a big deal to us.
That season
ahead,
too,
David.
David, first year Toyota was in the Cup Series. What were some of your biggest lessons you learned as a competitor, as an organization? What were some of the big takeaways that you guys used going forward, 2008, 2009? Because that team did get progressively better, but we know 2007 certainly was a struggle, not only for the Toyota camp, but for MWR as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things I learned, and I probably learned in the Truck Series is, and actually thinking back now, is because David will tell you, I used to race everybody like it was the last lap of a $1 million to win show. And we were just sitting on the wall one day, and I don't even know if he remembers this or not. He probably doesn't. But he said, he goes, you don't have to race everybody. You don't have to race everybody like a convict. I mean, that's really what it came down to. And it was his way of telling me that, you can pace yourself, because I'd burn the tires off, and I'd knock fenders off, and I'd be backed in the fence, and I'd do everything wrong you could do. I was doing, and he actually thought enough of me to just say, hey man, just mellow out and you'll be fine. And I used that advice, and that wasn't the first time he was the first person that told me that, but that wasn't the first time I'd heard it through the rest of my career, and it always helped me. Because the reality was, you can't race everybody. You can't race, if you're racing 500 miles, you can't race everybody as hard as you can go for 500 miles. You can't be out there, the last half of the race is what matters. And I thought, coming from running short tracks and racing 25 lap features, I thought you had to go as hard as you could go from the green flag. And man, I ruffled some feathers, and I made a lot of stupid mistakes, but eventually I guess you could say I kind of got it at some point and figured it out somewhat. I think I still struggled at times, but it was helpful to have that conversation with David sitting on that pit wall. And it was a short conversation. It was to the point. I don't even know if I'd run over him or something. I'd probably run over him. I'd run over a lot of people. So I probably ran over him one time there. And that was his way of telling me to mellow out and you'll be fine. And it was true.
Well, you learn how to do it. You learn how to do it well, man, and man, you have so much racing history with your dad, and man, as famous as David Reutimann is in the racing world and the NASCAR racing world, and I want you to know, still today, people still ask me, man, what's David Reutimann doing? Where's Reutimann at? Is he coming back? You have such a big following out there, and that name, man, that David Reutimann, that was a cool racing name, but how's your dad doing? And man, I'm sure your family was super proud to make it at the level, and to make it at I think to the biggest racing series in the world, NASCAR Cup Series racing, because man, your dad is legendary dirt track racer all over the country. So man, I'm sure he was super proud of his son. That was pretty cool to be able to race like as well as your dad did, and go on and make it all the way to the top and win there's not many people in the world can say they won a NASCAR Cup race, and that's pretty awesome, man. They don't get much better than that. No,
it was certainly a big deal at the time. And yeah, my dad was at every race. Like he never missed a race. He was always with me, and my cousin Sean, I'm sure you can remember Sean. He was my father, so it was kind of a family deal. But yeah, it was always cool, and to have him be a part of that. And he just actually turned 80 on Friday, and then he raced on Saturday. So he's still at it at 80 years old, and I think he won 4th or 5th in the feature. I messed around there, lucked out, and won the thing. And the main deal was like when I race with my dad, I got to try to make sure I beat him because I cannot take the trash talking he puts on me in the car. he'll lay it on pretty thick, but we have a good time. We have a pretty cool relationship. And yeah, if the only reason I have any following at all is because of people that followed Buzzy Reutimann most of the time and say, hey, that's Buzzy's kid. And you know, I got fans that way. You know, it's kind of the fan by default, really. You know, it's like they all watch Buzzy Reutimann and watch him win races, and then you know his kids racing too. So let's see what he's about. And it was a good ride while it lasted.
Well, I want to disagree with that a little bit because I think David Reutimann made his own way. It didn't hurt at all to have a famous dad and one hell of a race car driver, one of the best dirt track racers in the country of all times. But man, that's pretty awesome, man. That's pretty awesome. You were talking earlier, David, about the timing of everything. And, you know, maybe you're, you know, maybe in NASCAR racing that maybe, you know, you gotten to the point where you think is for younger men. And I hope you're paying attention to your dad, because he's 80 and still getting after it, dude. So I got to disagree with you a little bit on the NASCAR, what your comments on the NASCAR deals for the younger man, you know, because I really believe if getting into the right situation, the right team, that David Reutimann can get back in a cup car or a truck or an Xfinity car and still get the job done. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with that. And it's no different than you've driven good stuff and you've driven stuff that has been down a little bit, right? And you know the difference between the top 5 and the top 20, and sometimes you just have to my daughter rides horses, and I learned that early on that's really similar to racing. If you're not on a good horse, you're not going to go very well, you know, and that's a lot of things cross over in between the horse world and the racing world. And you're right. You don't forget how to drive a race car. You don't forget how to be competitive. And whether it's David Starr or David Reutimann or Bobby Labonte or any of those other guys, if they had an opportunity to drive good stuff, it would still go pretty good, I think, you know?
So you mentioned your dad. Where did it all start for you, David?
Wow. You know, I mean, when you grow up, you know, my dad raced up in New York and Pennsylvania. He was from Florida, but he raced up there during the summer months because it paid better and you could run multiple nights. So he'd run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I was always at a racetrack. I mean, always, to the point where I actually got sick of it. You know, I was like, man, we get a rain out. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm glad we don't have to go to racetrack, you know? And didn't realize that that's how my dad made a living and fed me. So I probably should have taken that into account. But so, yeah, I mean, ever since I can remember having a thought, I wanted to be like him. And so, you know, I mean, I'm basically my grandfather raced, my dad raced, and uncles and everybody. And so it was just kind of it would have been weird if I didn't race, you know, because it was all right there in front of me.
Yeah, but you know, the Reutimann, you know, the Reutimann name is such a big name in auto racing in the United States, with your grandfather and your dad, you know, but I still just go back, you know, and as much success as your grandfather and your dad have had and still are having, you know, it's just cool. And I saw your dad all the time at the racetrack, and he was so proud, and the love, and you know, you could just see it just oozing out of him. You know, he was just proud but man, to make it to NASCAR and to have a career like you had. And, you know, you got to understand that, you know, you just didn't have a NASCAR career. I mean, you drove for Michael Waltrip, you drove for Darrell Waltrip. I mean, when you came into the sport, I mean, that's pretty awesome. I don't think it gets much better than that. I mean, to drive for a new car manufacturer that was just really new into NASCAR, to have a Toyota come in. And I mean, you got to do some really, really, really cool things. And man, I raced against you. You were good, man. You were one of the best. And I don't know, it's a cool career, you know, and I'm just glad to know that you're still kicking butt out there. You're still winning races. And I'd love to see you back in NASCAR one day. If you just done 1 or 2 races, you know, it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, well, I'd enjoy that, but I mean, heck, I'm here in the shop building dirt cars, and to be honest, I haven't since I left. I raced my last race at Richmond, and I decided that was it, and I was leaving, and I just it's almost like a movie. You walk outside the gate, and you turn around, and you look around, and you say, well, that's it, and I drove off, and there's no, it wasn't any reason to announce that I was leaving or doing anything different. I just left. And I did have a lot of good opportunities, and I'm grateful for that. And it was a lot of fun. But it's just, I haven't watched a lap, with the exception of the last 5 laps of the first year that Truex won the championship at Homestead, because a friend of mine, and so I watched that. But other than that, it's like, racing's like a drug, Dave, firsthand, what it's like. And it's like, if I can't be a part of it, I can't watch it. I mean, if you're trying to kick a habit, you don't hang out with addicts, right? You just, so I just by an act of self-preservation, I kind of went cold turkey on it, and man, it was hard for the first couple of years. It was hard. It was real hard, but eventually you just kind of settle in, and you got life and kids in college now, and got a business, and there's not a lot of time for that anymore.
Man, I get it. It sounds like to me, when you turned around and looked back at Richmond, you did a Drew Brees deal. You know what I mean? Because last game he played, had his kids with him, his wife. He turned around. We saw that on television, and he pulled a Reutimann, basically. And so, man, I get it. I totally get it. But I want to say something. You're in your shop right now. You're building race cars, and that was really, I think, why you were such a great driver, is you understood what you needed in a race car too, whether it was a dirt car or a late model stock car or a NASCAR truck or the Cup Series. I mean, you understood how the race car worked and the feel you wanted to have. And still today, I mean, to have your own business building dirt cars and chassis, you don't see a lot of that in our sport today. And I feel like that's one of the things that made you pretty awesome on the racetrack, is your understanding of the race car and how to give your engineer and your crew chief the information they needed to make the right changes, and David, as well as I do, the sport has changed some, but we still love this great sport of NASCAR racing. It's a little bit different, but sometimes when I talk to these new kids, these young kids that are driving these fast race cars, and I want to talk a little bit of a chassis, their setups, and they can't really talk with you, you know what I mean? And I'm always amazed by that, you know what I mean? To ask them the type of front suspension they got and what they're doing, and I'm surprised a lot of times when a lot of them, you think I'm talking a different language to them, you know what I mean? But they're able to get in these race cars and win races, but that was a cool thing. A lot of the guys that aren't racing these days that me and you got to race with, we could build race cars, and we knew pretty much every part and piece, how to build them, and what we needed in a race car. So that was kind of cool that you had all that.
But yeah, it was probably a benefit in some areas, and certainly, you have an understanding or kind of a general understanding of front end geometry and the things, especially when we used to travel the cars, obviously, up and down. There's not really any of that anymore, but and so you knew what putting a shorter A-frame on, what it would affect, and what it would do, and what it would do to the roll centers and all those things like that. And I think you talk about a lot of the younger guys, and geez, I feel like I'm an old guy now. That they don't really have that feedback or know what you're talking about. It reminds me of a Days of Thunder moment when Tom Cruise says, he just goes, "I just don't have the vocabulary." Well, that's really what it comes down to now. They just don't have the vocabulary. They don't understand, whether it be truck arm split or whatever, or any of those other things that we used to do. I don't know if they do anymore. That what it does and what it affects. And I mean, I think some of them wouldn't even know if you went over and smacked some of them over the head with a truck arm. They probably wouldn't know what it was. It's kind of a weird deal though. But and obviously the sport's changing, and obviously with the new generation car that they got coming out in a few years, that thing's totally different. So heck, there won't even be a truck arm underneath there. So I mean, I guess sometimes the less you know is a benefit. I remember my friend Brian Patty, who used to start that I got my start with in driving for Joe Nemechek, he used to, I think sometimes he wanted a little less feedback. He just wanted the driver to be shut your mouth and turn the wheel. That's all he wanted. And he would do the rest. But some guys wanted that feedback, and it was helpful. And you're right, it helped to understand the race car.
David, tell me about those first couple years with MWR. You're in the 00, then you go to the 44, and then you're back to the 00. What were those first couple years like in trying to find your footing there with MWR? How did that all go?
Yeah, it was, at that point, it was just about making races. I mean, that was really, really what it came down to. And the reason I got moved around for lack of a better reason is
Hey, Dave, let's pause it for a second, guys. We lost your audio there for a second, David.
I had a phone call come in there, but anyway, so yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let's start from that answer. We'll just count you down. 3, 2, and 1.
It was just about making races, and I qualified a little bit better than some of the guys on my team, and they felt like that we could get in races and use the points that I had accumulated. And it was a big drawn out mess. Points, Dave will tell you, points are a pain in the tail sometimes.
Yeah, they are.
With that deal. And sometimes, it occupies more time than it should, more of your time than it should. But there was a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of things in that probably I certainly didn't need at race. Heck, I was throwing up before every qualifying session because I was just so nervous about qualifying, and I go out there and about kill myself and just squeak in or something like that. And it worked for a while, and but it was the first couple of years at MWR. It was no picnic. That's for damn sure.
That's a hell of a way to describe it, Reutimann. I mean, wow, man, that's just real right there, But man, it was just, again, obviously it was no picnic, but it was still cool to race at that level. And, with everything being new for Michael Waltrip racing in the Cup Series with Toyota, it was still cool to be a fan of yours and to watch you perform. And, I just remember you winning that 2009 Coca-Cola 600. That was just a big deal. I know, all that drama and all the hard work and just, all the challenging parts of a new team and different drivers and points. But man, when you won that race, it made it all worthwhile. You know what I mean? It made all the drama and all the stuff worth every bit of it. You know what I mean? So can you remember when you took the white flag? And then can you remember, take us back when you got the checker flag and won your first Cup race? I mean, that's a lot of emotions there. I mean, and everything you went through. I mean, so that was really cool.
Well, the Coke 600, fortunately for me, was a rain shortened event, right? So we were all in line, and I was running 10th or so, 11th. Had a decent car. The Coke 600, that's a long race, right? So we had a long way to go. And rain was coming, and the yellow was out because of the rain, and Roddy Childers made an awesome call and said, we're going to stay out here. And I'm like, okay, well, tells me stay out, I stay out. Well, everybody in front of me comes, and there I'm sitting, myself, and I think Robbie Gordon and the rest of the guys stayed out, just gambled. And I'm thinking to myself, and I told Rodney, like any good driver would do, start second guessing the crew chief. And I was like, what did we just do here? This is the dumbest move I've ever seen in my entire life. And now I'm going to make up all that track position. And we rode around, and they brought us to pit road and stopped us, and we never went green again. And so it was kind of anticlimactic as far as that goes. It was a huge race and a huge shot in the arm for MWR and Toyota and all that stuff went with it. But man, I took some heat over that race because they're like, you never really led a lap under green. I was like, I know, but I don't write the rule book. Once a race is halfway, is complete, I'm not the first guy that's won a rain shortened race, but certainly a lot of people were upset about it. But what are you going to do? I tell everybody, it's like going to your job and working half a day and getting a full day's salary. That's really what it came down to. I mean, I only worked half a day. I was in the race car for half the race, and it worked out. So.
Well, Reutimann, I can tell you this. I'm going to be honest with you. I just said, what did it feel like when you're looking at that white flag? So that race, I was there, and I don't even remember the rain shortened event. All I know is David Reutimann won the Coca-Cola 600, 2009, 10, whatever year it was. And I don't even remember that it was a rain shortened race and how you won it. All I know is you won a cup race, dude. And it don't matter how you did it, what the circumstances was. The record book shows David Reutimann won the 2009 Coca-Cola 600. And man, let me assure you, if you asked every other driver that we raced against or that you raced against on the cup side, they would take a win however they could get it. And I know a fact that there's a lot of people that have been racing in the cup series for years and never even won a race. So you've won 2, 3 of them. That's amazing, dude. You got to pat yourself on the back. So that's all that matters.
To add to that, David, too, the crew chief, where's he at now? Rodney Childers, as good as anybody in the sport. I would say it worked out. It was pretty good for everybody there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Dave, I mean, and you as a driver, and I think any of the drivers in the garage area, no matter who they are, we all get it, right? We get that races get shortened, and we get, and we're all saying, yeah, I'll win that son of a gun if they cut it short. I don't care. But
it don't matter.
But on the fan side, it's a little different, I mean, some of them, take it very personal that their guy didn't win, or they were leading and pitted, and they could have stayed out, or they could have gambled, or they could have done all those things. And that's really where it came from. On the driver standpoint, drivers didn't care because they would have took it anyway. Just like you just said, they would take it any way they could get it.
Absolutely.
None of them, and they would have loved to have been in that position. So from a driver standpoint, yeah, all those guys. Matter of fact, Tony Stewart didn't like the way I was racing him early on, and chewed my butt out at the one of the red flags they had, because they had several during the course of the day.
Yeah.
He was also the first guy to congratulate me after I won. So yeah, Tony's one of those guys that would chew your butt out, and then once he got done chewing on you, he was done. And then I went on. So it was a unique situation, but then the win at Chicago was probably the one I'm most proud of, because we legitimately, there was nothing anybody could say. We outrun everybody. We were the fastest, and we had a great car. So.
Well, David, you hear sometimes too when a driver wins a big prestigious race, i.e. Daytona, the Coke 600, the Indianapolis 500, that it does kind of change the trajectory of their careers and affects their lives professionally and personally. Do you feel like having that Coke 600 win did any of that for you?
Yeah, I don't know, because I think it certainly got me some different endorsements and stuff like that. It came along with that, so it certainly helped, and I felt like it maybe gave me a little bit of longevity in the sport. But I don't know. I mean, it was one of those situations. I think you have to do, and David will tell you a lot of times, especially when you have good stuff and you're running in the top 5 on a regular, you're only as good as your last race. In the viewing of your team a lot of times. And it's just like, in NASCAR racing, especially on the cup level, you win on Sunday, you do some interviews on Monday, Tuesday. By the time Wednesday rolls around, it's time to back to reality. You have to do it again.
Absolutely.
If you can't do it again, you suck. That's
You mentioned the win at Chicagoland. What about breaking through and making the chase? How big a deal was that to you guys to get that chase berth?
Well, I mean, it was, and again, we talk about the points deal. It's like, man, all that stuff was so confusing. And to
Still
be able
is.
to get up in there. Yeah. I mean, and try counting points and positions and, where you finish and what happens. And it's like, man, I didn't really pay much attention to that point because I'm not smart enough to, for one, and number two, it takes away from what you're trying to do. And I would just say on the radio, I just tell those guys, Rodney Childers, just tell me what I got to do and where I got to be, and I'll try to be there, and that's what it really comes down to. So I'm smart enough to mash on the gas and turn left. The rest of that stuff, that's a little over my head. So I leave that to the guys that got college education, stuff like that.
Reutimann, I love hearing you speak about that, because basically what you're saying, hey man, when I take the green flag, I'm going to the front. My job's trying to win the race, not, I need to beat this car or this car. Our job's to beat every car. Not, it's kind of hard. And I'm with you on that. I totally agree with you. I don't pinpoint any particular car. It's like, we got a job to do. I mean, you got to that level and race with Rodney Childress and Michael Waltrip because you were a hardcore racer. You won racers and you were great. You were a great driver. So, it's kind of weird to kind of change that, because your points racing. That's like, hey man, when they drop the green flag, like you said, I'm going to the front. I'm gonna get all I can get, and then where you end up is where you end up, I guess. So it is hard to points race at times.
Oh, it's really hard because you want to just go as hard as you can, and sometimes that's not always the best option when you're point racing. Sometimes you need to run 10th to solidify a points position, but you got a car that you can maybe run in the top 3 with, where they're telling you to be conservative, and man, that's tough to do, and as well as I do, a lot of times when you slow down, you start making mistakes because you're going wide open and driving as hard as you can. And when you have to change that dynamic in that rhythm, about rhythm, Dave. I mean, just having that, when you change that, it changes the whole dynamic, and sometimes you get yourself into trouble. So.
Absolutely.
So Dave, we talk about the peak days, Michael Waltrip racing, running in the top 10, top 15 consistently. And you ran your last cup race in 2014. So kind of talk about that journey, the end of the Michael Waltrip racing tenure, 2011, BK racing, running some races with Front Row Motorsports. What were some of those events and some of those races like from your perspective?
Well, if you're coming from a organization like MWR and kind of got bounced out of there, and I won't bore you with the details of the trivia or any of that other stuff. But long story short, they made a change, and it was really late in the season, so everything was used up at that point. So I drove for Tommy Baldwin for a little bit, and I just that was kind of the beginning of the end for me. I felt like at that point I should have just stopped altogether, but I felt like I could get back in there and make a difference. And at the end of the day, Tommy Baldwin was a great guy, very underfunded. You had to be very, very careful with your stuff and do things. He did a great job with what he had. And BK Racing, again, they bought a bunch of old Red Bull stuff. And when Red Bull got out of the sport, and it was kind of wore out and used up. And then the Front Row deal there. I mean, I was just basically a car to. And they made it clear to me. None of those guys ever told me anything but what the business aspects were to, that this car is here to try to make money so we can help with our other 2 cars, right? So I mean, there was never any, they weren't trying to win. They were trying to just maintain as a business model, and it just wasn't really my cup of tea anymore, And then so at the end. I was just putting in time. I was out there on the racetrack, but I wasn't competitive and wasn't going to be competitive. So at that point, I just said, man, I got to do something different. And that's all. It just wasn't for me anymore,
That's a true.
And you talked about how at Richmond, looking back and thinking, okay, this is the last race, but I've got to ask you 7 years later, you see a lot of these guys that do come back for a good deal if it is in the cards. If the right deal came along, would you do a one-off deal in any of the 3 series?
Absolutely. I mean, that's nuts. I would definitely do that. I mean, if you get a call from a top team owner, say like if Rick Hendrick calls me up and says, "Hey, I got an opening," I'm there at his doorstep before he even hangs up the phone. And if he needs his grass cut, I'm doing that too. That's what it comes down to. But so yeah, I absolutely would. I mean, the reality of it all is not realistic, but I mean, yeah, if an opportunity ever came to get in a decent car, absolutely I would. I can't say that I would never do that again, but at the same time, now I'm just I own these race cars and the stuff I'm doing, and I'm trying to mentor some younger guys and tell them what not to do. And we go pavement racing, we go dirt racing, and you know, some younger kids, you know, heck, they're starting them young now. Dave, about 14, 15 years old, they're starting or younger. So and all the parents feel like their kid has a legitimate shot to be the next Jeff Gordon, and I'm hoping to be a rung in the ladder on their climb to the top. That's where I'm at. So
there you go. You're a step there, Reutimann. And Reutimann, it's interesting to hear your, you know, you talk about towards the end, and I don't know if people understand that when you're a hardcore racer and have the success that you have had in your career, and then you're jumping from Tommy Baldwin to, you know, front row, and when you're not going to the racetrack loaded and ready to try to go for a win, that's tough on any driver to know that when you're going to the racetrack, you're just there to help them with their business model, and that business model doesn't include a checker flag, you know. So I think most racers, myself and other racers that are listening to us, that will be listening to us, will understand as a champion, as one of the best racers out in the truck series and winning cup races like you did, they can understand and appreciate why you said, hey, when you turned around and looked at Richmond Racetrack and walked off the racetrack, that was it for you, because you know, if you couldn't go loaded and you know, aimed and loaded to go win, you know, it's like, that's not what David Reutimann's about. So we can kind of understand that, you know, we get you on that. So we appreciate you sharing. That's real right there, man.
Well, I mean, I've proven I can run bad in a good car at times, so I didn't need a bad car to prove that I could do it. Where it just, it wasn't, the opportunity wasn't there to win anymore. And you know, you have to adjust your expectations. I think one of the biggest reality checks I ever had, I was running Daytona. I was running Tommy Baldwin's car. We dodged all the wrecks. It was getting towards the end of the race, had a shot at a pretty good finish, you know. And Tommy come on the radio and said, all right, just stay where you're at, you know. And I'm like, well, man, I think we can get it. He goes, no. He goes, when you break the math down like I do in the what it pays per position, he goes, this is where we need to be. We don't need to take a chance of bringing this thing back in a basket, which, I mean, as a small team owner, he had to worry about wasting a car.
Right.
As opposed to the other big teams where if you had to write a car off, you just write it off, you know? So at that point, I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I can get used to this stuff. And so, you know, I just, you know, I guess I didn't. So,
well, there's a lot of respect for you, buddy. There's a lot of respect, and as a NASCAR racer that raced with you, I understand your feelings there, and I totally understand. And man, I have the most respect for you to say, hey, if these teams aren't going to give me what it takes to get back to winner's circle, then I'm going to go race somewhere where I can win. You know what I mean? That I know I got good stuff. So
yeah, you know, and you know, I think back about the times when we used to sit and do autograph sessions, and you can rest assured that if David Starr was at the table, there was going to be a line, because we would all sign stuff, and then David Starr would sign. He'd write a novel over there and take the time as an individual to spend that time with a fan, and really one of the nicest autographs I've ever seen on anybody. So it was always pretty cool. But we would always say, it's like, well, where do we put Starr? Do we put him at the end of the table or the front of the table? Because he's going to hold stuff up. So we would always try to put him in the front so we could just sit back there and talk, and then they would trickle down to us the rest of the time. But I always admired that about you, Dave, the fact that it didn't matter who it was or whatever. You always took the time to make each fan feel special. And I think that's lost a lot on the race drivers of today. And I think we need more of that. So
yeah,
I totally agree with you, you know. But hey, Reutimann, you were good to the fans, and you had I wish I had a tape recorder with me, and I should record when people are talking about you, because Reutimann, the Reutimann name, David Reutimann comes up a lot, and I wish you could hear when it happens, and I get asked about you a lot just because people knew I raced with you in the truck series. Where's David Reutimann? Is he coming back one day? What's he doing these days, man? I'm telling you, you really, and the fans of our sport, they're very passionate. And once they get behind somebody, they're behind them for a lifetime. You know what I mean? So, but man, you're missed dearly. You're missed in NASCAR. The fans mess you. The competitors mess you. You're one of the hardest racers to race against. You were damn good, but man, the sport we don't have David Reutimanns no more. We got hardcore racers and people that race hard, but a racer that grew up like you grew up, earned the opportunity to be here. Those are few far in between these days, man. So it was an honor to be able to race with you, man. You're a champion guy, man. So it's good.
I appreciate that. That's like I say, out here at Sherrill Ford, I'm the only one in my shop. So
David, I got to tell you one thing before we get to our NASCAR News and Notes segment, just from a personal standpoint. When I was a young kid, Dominic and I, we're a bit younger than Starr here, Ruben. The first time I ever saw a stock car, I was living in a small town in Oregon, and your 99 Bush car, the Best Western car, came to our local Best Western. And I got to see that car in person, one of those showroom cars. That's the first time I'd ever got to see a stock car. And so that was cool. And my Uncle Jason, you're his all-time favorite driver.
he needs to set the bar a little higher, I can tell you that.
Oh, man, that's funny.
Oh, gosh. But guys, before we get to our NASCAR News and Notes segment, I want to remind you, as always, that we are presented by Whataburger. And you can stop by Whataburger for a hot, hearty breakfast any morning or late at night. They're serving up breakfast from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. Proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. News and Notes time. Dominic, Martin Truex, total domination at Darlington on Sunday.
Third career win in the NASCAR Cup Series at Darlington for Martin Truex Jr. But more importantly, he's the only multi-winner in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2021. Truex led the most laps en route to victory in the Goodyear 400 at Darlington Raceway on Sunday, notching win number 3 of 2021, but win number 30 of his career. Just the 28th NASCAR driver in the history of the Cup Series to hit at least 30 wins.
Awesome stuff there from Martin Truex. Starr, we'll start with you. Truex off to a good start to 2021, it seems.
Amazing. It's not a big surprise to see Martin Truex dominating Darlington like we saw on Sunday. Not surprised for that organization or him as a driver. I mean, Martin Truex is going to be he's a championship contender every year, gives organization, Toyota. I mean, just, you have all that recipe right there is just this championship recipe. One thing that stands out with the Darlington race, I stayed in Darlington and watched the Cup race, and I was standing on top of a building in turn 3, and I was watching Martin Truex's line, and I swore that he was only 2 inches off the wall entering turn 3. And he ran that line pretty much every lap, except when he had to pass a lap car. And I was watching that line, and I was trying to figure out what he was doing. Looked like to me he was saving his tires the long run. It seemed like as the run went on, cars that wasn't running that really, really, really high line would fall off, and his car stayed real consistent. So I was watching him, and he's got really something figured out there. Martin Truex is hard to beat anyway, but his line he ran Sunday was really, really just a different type of line I've seen over the years. I've seen guys run up against the wall, but I've never seen them run up against the wall when they entered turn 3 until you exit turn 4. It was really different and unique, but man, it worked. Boy, he dominated that race. It was amazing. I was excited at the end when Larson made an attempt, I think twice, got within a car length of him, but man, I felt like Truex was playing with him. Then he pulled away 10 car lengths, 20. It was amazing, but heck of a race, and nothing surprised by end result, seeing Truex in victory lane.
Reutimann, I know you're not watching much Cup racing anymore, you said earlier in the show, but you're a big fan of Martin. He's a friend of yours. I imagine that's always going to be cool to see him running well and off to a good start.
It does, and to add to what David was talking about, being as I used to sit in team meetings and stuff with a guy, and we would talk about racing and the race ahead, and he would always talk about what he called hunting the gray. And Dave will know what I'm talking about. Is the fact that it's the track's black and rubbered up right up to the point till really, really close to the wall, and especially at Darlington because everybody runs out there. And so he was always really good at getting in high and floating it in there and getting the thing turned and driving her straight off and keeping that right front just in that little bit of racetrack where there was kind of nobody else was running. So I've heard him talk about that a lot, and I'm certainly, just like Dave says, I'm not surprised at all that he ran as good as he did.
Dominic, what did you make of what Truex pulled off and how he started the season so far?
And we're getting to see a legend in the making, right? Martin Truex Jr., consistently fast, always winning stages, always leading a bunch of laps, and just proving why time and time again he's a proven winner. And I think we're looking at one of the guys that will be in the championship four come November at Phoenix. By the way, a race he did win in March.
There you go. How about that? Martin Truex, he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer one of these days. He's off to a good start to this year and been a really good career to this point. Dominic, what else we got?
Other headlines that we're looking at, May 11th, with Fast Motorsports announced Kyle Tilley will be running his first 4 NASCAR Cup Series races. Tilley's been tabbed to run 4 road course races, starting with the Circuit of the Americas for Live Fast Motorsports. The England-born driver will also run at Road America July 4th, Watkins Glen on August 8th, and in the Indianapolis road course the week after on August 15th. So another road course specialist making their NASCAR Cup Series debut, and he gets 4 shots in the 78 car.
Starr, are you familiar with him much?
I missed his name. What's his name?
So his name's Kyle Tilley. He's the reigning Rolex 24 LMP2 champion and Asian Le Mans Pro Series AM champion as well. So quite an extensive road racing background. He's 33 years old.
No doubt about it. I've never, since I'm not I don't really follow that type of racing, but man, hearing his accomplishments, I mean, it's well deserved, and he'll do that team a great job. But I'm sad to say that I don't know who he is. I hadn't followed him or never watched him race. What about you, David Reutimann?
No, I'm like you, Dave. I don't watch that type of racing very often. I am a fan of all kinds of racing, so it's when I get a chance to watch it, I do. But yeah, just because I've never heard of the guy doesn't mean he's not any good. I can tell you that. That means absolutely nothing. So it sounds like you said, from his list of accomplishments, he's a pretty able-bodied guy, and like you said, he'll do a really good job in that car, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So Dominic, since you introduced us to him, educate us about this guy. How good is he?
I mean, I'll be alongside with the two Davids. I don't know too much about him as well. So I guess I should have done my homework a little bit more, but reading the little bit I did on his accomplishments and what he's done, I mean, he's 33 years old. So we have another young guy coming to the NASCAR Cup Series. And I got to give BJ McLeod credit where credit's due. He tends to have a really good talent. And Matt Tipke's a co-owner in the team as well. These guys tend to pick some out-of-the-box guys that you probably wouldn't see typically running in the Cup Series. They give a lot of guys a lot of chances. BJ's known to do that in his Xfinity Series team, and he's doing that in the Cup Series. So time and time again, introducing new people to the series, that's not a bad thing.
No.
Speaking of Matt Tiff, by the way, he just posted yesterday, 6 months seizure free after not driving for 2 years. He's finally back on the road, and he's driving a Tesla. So
That's right.
Good for Matt. Great story there. No doubt about that. Real quick, Dover coming up this week. Starr, we'll start with you. You've been to Dover numerous times. What are you expecting this weekend out of Dover?
Man, I hope to, get us a top 15 finish. And, if it can be top 10, we'll definitely be going for it. Kind of like Reutimann, when they drop that green flag, man, I'm going to be charging to the front. But, I think a realistic go for our Carl Long Motorsports racing team. Again, I talk about the budget a lot because we don't have a big budget we work on. And, if we can get a top 15 finish coming out of Dover, I mean, that's what we're looking at, to keep knocking off those top 15s. And if you do that, maybe we sneak and give us a top 10 here pretty soon. But, I know Carl talks a lot about points, and I'm kind of like Reutimann on this. I don't really focus too much on the point stuff, but it's crucial for a team like ours to understand there's bonus money involved. If you fall out of the top, I don't know. I think Carl said if you're not in the top 30 in points, you don't get bonus money. And look, man, to race these race cars in any NASCAR series, I don't care if it's truck, Xfinity, or Cup, bonus money or extra money the race car can bring in because of where you're at on points. That's a big deal for a small team like us. So I just do my job, and man, I'm going to Dover. You're ready to race. I love racing there, and hopefully we can come out there with a great finish. It's pretty cool. I got a new sponsor, Brett Barr. He's a guy on Fox that does a special reports car. We're going to have that.
Britt Baer.
Britt Baer. Yeah. Britt Baer. And he'll be first time on a NASCAR race car with us and at Dover. So I'm excited about all that, but I'm excited to race at Dover. Again, it's a great racetrack, multi-lane racetrack. You can run on the bottom, you can move to the center. And sometimes in the Xfinity series, we get the top to work. So it's always a fun track to race on as a racer. Because you're not just locked down to that bottom groove, but looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a great weekend.
Who's the Cup driver to watch for? Who's going to be the guy to beat this weekend, Starr?
Well, man, I think you look at Truex, and I talk a lot about Kevin Harvick. It's surprising that Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin and there's 2 or 3 other ones that are top runners that haven't won this year, and I rest assured that you're going to see the 4-car and 11-car up there. They're digging pretty hard. And, I think Denny Hamlin finished 5th or 6th at Darlington. He's always right there, but we'll see these guys in the victory lane. And it's good to see the Stewart Haas car of Kevin Harvick back to his old ways. I think he come out of Darlington. I believe he finished 3rd, 4th, whatever it was. He was, ran in the top 5, top 6 most of the race. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kevin Harvick back in victory lane, or even Denny Hamlin.
Reutimann, you've raced at Dover numerous times. What do you make of Dover? What's the key to racing well there?
I've done well there, and I've stunk up the show and not been very good. So I've been on both ends of the spectrum, but that place is, and again, I think Dave agreed, but there's no place to relax at Dover. I mean, people talk about how intense Bristol is, and it is very intense, but it's almost like Dover is like a little bit of a stretched out kind of Bristol. And again, there's not, it's fairly narrow on the exit. You can get in trouble and get in the fence really easily on the exit of both corners. And it's someplace you got to stay up on top of the wheel the whole time, and you can't really relax.
Yeah. Dominic, who are you watching for this weekend at Dover?
I think Chase Elliott might get the job done. We've seen him lead a bunch of laps at Dover International Raceway, or Speedway, excuse me. So I think Chase Elliott, like you said, Starr, Kevin Harvick, there's so many guys that just haven't won a Cup race this year, and it's shocking. Denny Hamlin's another one that comes to mind. Starr, we talk about every week on the show how we're getting closer and closer to that 16 driver win mark before the regular season ends. We're going to get a little closer to that after Sunday, I think. You think so too, Tyler?
Yeah, I think Chase is a good pick. I'll say this too. I just want to see Eric Almirola run well. He's been off to such a bad start to this year, and so many things haven't gone his way. If Almirola can just finish top 10 or top 15, that would do him wonders. That team's in really bad shape right now, it seems, based on how things have gone. Real quick, before we get to our Ask David segment, reminder, as always, we are presented by Whataburger. Don't forget that every Whataburger is made fresh, served hot, and prepared just like you like it. Want jalapenos and cheese on that? No problem. They've got you covered. Whataburger, proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. We've asked folks to submit their questions to us on Facebook, facebook.com/David Starr Podcast, Twitter @Starr Podcast, and by email at davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. And we've asked you to submit questions for not only David, but for David Reutimann too. And we'll start on Facebook. This question comes from Hallie. This one's for Reutimann. And Hallie writes, you drove for so many different sponsors while in NASCAR, Reutimann. which one did you enjoy working with the most?
Well, I mean, there's no such thing as a bad sponsor, right? I'm sure. And I'm sure. Looking back, really, I mean, and obviously the one I've had the longest association with has been Aaron's. They were a lot of fun. They were real, at that time it was a privately owned company, so there was a lot of leeway in not having to keep your shareholders happy and stuff like that. And I also enjoyed the matter of fact, the old truck days, the old NTN guys. They were out of Canada. They were a lot of fun. They were a good group of guys, and gave me opportunity, and it had the NTN bearings truck. So I mean, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of good ones, but those are two that definitely stick out.
Yeah, that's really cool, and we certainly know what you mean by that on that front. Starr, I feel like we know what your answer would be. Is it Whataburger? Is that your favorite sponsor?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. They've been with me, through thick and thin and just all the years. I mean, like David said, you can't race without any of your sponsors. You know what I mean? Every one of them, and every sponsor is a little bit different from their financial support that they give to the racing team, but every one of them is passionate. They love racing just as much as we do. And we couldn't race without them, so they're all my favorites. I love them all. And, but if you had to put your finger on one that just really stands out to me and one the fans love the most, it would be our Whataburger race car. No doubt about it. The fans love the brand. They love the Whataburger hamburgers. It's just been a fan favorite ever since Whataburger's been involved in NASCAR with myself.
Okay. Another question for you. This one comes from the email inbox. This is from Pablo. Pablo wants to know, Reutimann, what is your best or favorite Michael Waltrip memory?
When I can share on this cast, man, I don't, man, there's a lot, as you can imagine, being around Michael Waltrip was an interesting experience. He's a colorful guy, and you never know what he's going to pull up with and do. Man, I think, you know what? I think, and this is probably one of the nicest things anybody's ever done to me. I mean, now that take into account the guy did fire me. Okay, so that's strike one. But on top of that, when we first announced that I was going cup racing, all coming in here, right? He surprised me with going to my hometown in my backyard of my house and having the announcement that Domino's and Burger King were coming on board, and I was going to be a rookie for Michael Waltrip Racing, and that place was jam packed. I've never seen so many people in my dad's shop and all the surrounding areas, and so he went through the expense and put that on, flew me down there, surprised me. I had no idea what was going to happen. So that was probably my favorite moment, and it was probably one of the nicest things anybody's ever done. So
that's really cool.
Cool story right there. Cool story, Reutimann. Wow. In your backyard and at your dad's shop, all that, man. All y'all's friends and racing friends there. That's pretty awesome, man.
There was cops there parking cars. It was nuts. It was and basically happened in my backyard of my in between the shop and the house. There's a pretty big yard. So basically it all happened within 20 yards of the shop where it all basically started. So it was cool.
That's awesome, man. Wow.
Starr, do you know Michael Waltrip well? Any Michael Waltrip memories for you?
Oh man, I know Michael well. What, great guy. And like David says, he's got a huge personality, and he's really good with the fans and the media. But Michael's always been just, I've never driven for Michael Waltrip like David Reutimann has, and but man, he's always just nothing but professional. We talk racing, and I know him well. He's a great guy, so after he got out of the race car and doing TV stuff and all that kind of stuff, Michael's came up to me before and said, hey, if you need me to mention anything about any of your sponsors or you need something from a television standpoint, let me know and we'll get it taken care of. I mean, just always, going out of his way to make sure that, for myself and my team and my sponsors that they were getting the exposure when we wasn't running that great. So I always thought that I had a lot of respect for Michael from that standpoint, but, just watching him and his career and, having the longevity he had in cup racing and not winning a race for so long. You hear David Reutimann talking about, it wasn't a picnic like the fans might think it was because you're racing at the biggest racing series in the world and you're David Reutimann, you're driving for Michael Waltrip. Sometimes people's perspective is much different from reality. You know what I'm saying? And you hear David speak, tell us the stories about that, but you hear when Michael drove for all those years without a win, I can only imagine the pressure he was under and questioning his own ability, and then getting the opportunity to, the call of a lifetime to drive for Dale Earnhardt with DEI and, just winning the Daytona 500. And what happened after that race was over with. I mean, it's, the guy's been through a lot. So I have a lot of respect for him and, he's very colorful, big personality type of guy. I think he's really good for our sport.
Yeah, he's a character. That's for certain. I got to say, the first time I met Michael, he was carrying around a Merce, and that caught me off guard a little bit, but he was proud of it.
Carrying around a what?
A Merce, a man purse.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that kind of stuff, but anyway.
Oh, yeah. Dominic, you had one more thing for Reutimann before we go.
Sure. My question for you, Reutimann, I guess this one comes from Dominic with Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Any chance or any possibility or any interest in doing driver analyst work, radio, television down the road? Is that something that would interest you?
Yeah, obviously I would, but I don't know that I'm well spoken enough to be able to do that kind of job. I mean, but it's yeah. I mean, I think it would be a different perspective for sure. From what a lot of the guys give, but yeah. I mean, obviously it's something I would be interested in. But again, I say a lot and stammer a lot and stutter a lot. I'm not sure it would go as smooth as it needed to be any kind of production value,
Well, Reutimann, we kind of disagree with you. I think you've done pretty good. You're pretty smooth, brother. People like to hear racing, and you can talk racing, man. We didn't really hear any uhs and pausing and stuttering. You've done a good job, and we can't thank you enough for joining in on our podcast. The fans love you, man, and it's been an honor to have you join our show, man. We really appreciate it.
All right. Well, now listen, Star. This is an open invitation. Everybody's going to hear this. This dirt car behind me, you'll fit right in. Get with me one time. Those guys got my number. We'll go off to some local racetrack out here and we'll freaking throw some dirt, see what happens. All right.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm gonna take you up on that opportunity someday, buddy. Don't forget, we got this recorded. This is live, not live, but it's recorded. So I would love to do that and take you up on that offer one day, buddy. No doubt about it.
The offer stands. So anytime you want to get in it, we'll go.
Awesome, man. I might need some driving tips. That's for sure. It's been too long for me in dirt racing.
I can tell you what. No, that's about all I can offer. So,
well, David, you're getting some practice Uranium Capital Speedway this summer on an NASCAR off-season weekend. So we're looking forward to that, which you're going to will out here in New Mexico.
Absolutely, man. Hey, absolutely.
That's a little bit of a haul for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it or not. So.
Oh gosh. Well, that's great, guys. We got to run. Before we do, David, real quick, what's going on with you the next couple of days? You're in Pennsylvania, and then you'll head down the road to Dover here.
Man, just trying to get in a little just a lot going on with actually just spending some time with Missy and Rich with their family and friends and customers, Alarm Tech Systems. But it's kind of cool. Going to head down to Dover, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware tomorrow afternoon. go down there, get a little fishing in, a little relaxation, something we don't really get much of, and then get ready to go racing Saturday, man. So absolutely.
Awesome. Dominic, what's going on with the racing experts this week?
Man, we'll just continue to cover the news of the sport. Again, got to give a shout out to one of our top flight guys since the very beginning. Jonathan Field graduated from Mankato University with his journalism degree this past weekend. So Jonathan, we know you're watching, we know you're listening. We're very proud of you and just awesome to be associated with you. So we'll continue covering the sport. We'll continue doing what we can. And we're still doing some giveaways with the Let's Go Racing team. So all you got to do is just follow us on Twitter. You could win some David Starr autograph memorabilia. And we're doing them on Facebook as well.
Maybe I'll get me some David Starr autograph memorabilia here one of these days.
All you got to do is like or follow.
Okay. Well, I'm already 2 steps there, which you can also follow us on Twitter at Star Podcast, Facebook.com, David Starr Podcast, email davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. Also, connect with us by subscribing to the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. Make sure to hit that like button. We certainly would appreciate that. And we have to run. Appreciate Reutimann for stopping by. We'll be back here next week as we continue our championship May series. We'll put the checkered flag out on this show. For David Starr, David Reutimann, Dominic Oregon, I'm Tyler Jones saying so long. This has been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.